Hello to everyone who's watching. Tonight I have decided to talk about my sister's death. It's already been uh, a year, a little bit more than a year, and I felt that I wanted to share that story and to get it out. And the reason I'm doing it is partially because I'm home alone today at my house, my parents' house, in which I still live at. And it's really to be home alone because we're seven people in this family, and within a year, um, three people have left already. So there was seven people here, and now there's four. And I just felt that was weird, and I got this feeling of loneliness, which doesn't really bother me or scare me. It's actually very beautiful to get to be on my own. This is a pretty big house. It's an old house in which five children were raised. And I felt I wanted to talk about Silvia, whom, whom room we still keep in this house, even though she's dead. I want to share the story about her death. Mm. And the reason I'm doing it in English, it's because I just wanted to do it this way, and because I wanted to share this story with my English speaking friends, since I have told the story to my Spanish speaking friends. I'm Spanish speaker, obviously, and I have quite a big accent, I guess. And it's a sad story. My sister was 9 years old. Her name was Silvia, and she was beautiful. She was special. She was an angel. After her death, I composed a song for her, which is called Little Angel, Angelito in Spanish. And after I composed it, I realized that she had always been an angel, no matter if I called her an angel since the moment she died. She was always an angel. She wouldn't take part in any discussions here at home. She wouldn't make tantrums. She was not perfect, She's human, but she was very special, and everyone who knew her knows that and agrees on that. She was from heaven, and she was a blessing to this family. And this is the story. We went on a trip to the plains of Colombia, which are on the east of Colombia. It's called Los Llanos Orientales, the Eastern Plains. Um, the Eastern Plains are composed of, I think, three departments, which are pretty much like states in the United States. And the state we went to is named Meta, El Meta. We had always been familiar to the plains because mm, my grandfather owns a farm over there, and we used to go there a lot when we were little. It's a wonderful place, actually. It reminds me a lot of Kansas. I got to live in Kansas for 6 months after I graduated from high school here in Columbia. And geographically is a lot like Kansas, a lot like Dorothy's home. Um, Actually, not the whole family went to that trip. It was only my dad, my sister Sophia, who's 15 years old, Silvia, and me. My brother, my sister Sarah, and my mom didn't go to the trip. Um, it's pretty harsh because my mom couldn't go to the trip because she she had not the time. her work vacations had already passed and she couldn't make it. So she started to tell my dad maybe it was not prudent to go. I hope that word is good, is well um, used. And after we decided to go on that trip, my mom started to persuade my dad of not going to the trip. And she was like, you know, Paulo, Paulo is the name, is my dad's name. I guess that's Paul in English. He's like, Paulo, it might not be the time to go on that trip. Mm, I don't know. You should guys stay home. And so she disagreed. She sort of disagreed with the trip. And we went to the trip. My dad likes to be very, he's a nature lover. And I mean, I remember like being little and going hiking a lot with my dad, and he loves the countryside, and he's pretty he loves adventures, and and he made this trip, and he planned it, and actually for the first time in our lives he hired some kind of company that makes trips. And one of the guys of that company went with us on the trip. He didn't know the place. It was my dad's idea, and my dad set up all the places we were going to, and he was just accompanying us for logistic arrangements, like making food and making sure we camped um, correctly, you know? And and so we left Bogota. Bogota is the capital of Colombia. We left Bogota on a Sunday, and it was the beginning of August. And we started the trip. It was we were on two pickup trucks, pickup cars, and we just drove and drove and drove and met places, met farms, actual farms, you know, and some of the time we had to sleep in tents, and it was a pretty good trip. It was very interesting, and we got to go horseback riding, and I was not quite into the trip because I had been depressed throughout the whole first semester of last year. I had depression. It was pretty harsh, and when I went on that trip, I had already been recently getting back into my life and getting inspired again to do my artistic projects, which mean life to me. That's what I do. That's what I love doing. And I remember that when I went on that trip, I suddenly planned a documentary, the Arabic uh, Jewish conflict was on the news, especially on the news by that time. I don't know the details of the news, but it was on the news again. I guess it's conflict we all have grown with or knowing about it. And I thought I'd like to make a song about it. And I was planning on contacting some Arabic speaker, hopefully a Muslim person, and a Jewish to teach us, me and another singer friend those languages so we could make a song against the conflict. And I was planning on recording that on video and recording it as a part of a documentary about it. I'm a journalist and I had been refusing to work in journalism because I was into music and anyways. So I was planning on doing it, and during that trip I was dreaming again. So I was like absent-minded and far from my dad and my sisters. I would spend a lot of time going and walking around and smoking around and drinking coffee around and planning around. And it was very special to me because I had lost track of a very special friend to me. He's the sound engineer I work with, who I really love. We're close friends. And I I got back in contact with him. I called him and I was like, Stefano, I want to do this. I want to record with you again. And it was very special to me. I was being born again artistically. Sorry. So I was planning this and I was absent minded. And that was me throughout the trip. We went hiking. There was a day when we went to a lake or sort of a pantano, how to say that in English, sort of a swamp. It was full of vegetation and mosquitoes, and I remember they were stinging us very bad. And that was it. We went to that place, and by the middle of the trip, the trip lasted for 1 week, and maybe on the fourth day, my sister Silvia began to have fever and vomit, and it was weird. We didn't know what it was. We never ever thought it could be something serious, and we thought it was just some kind of virus, and we pretty much only gave her Tylenol. Tylenol, ibuprofeno. How to say that in English? Ibuprofen, whatever. Uh, and we never ever thought it could have been something serious, and we did what we could, and my dad took special care for her, but she kept vomiting and having fever, and that was very worrying. So, uh, the day before we were going to get back to Bogota, we went to a farm, and it was very hot. It was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and the sun was very harsh on us. And I remember Silvia was lying on a hammock, and she was so pale, she was so weak, she looked very sick, and she felt very bad. And she vomited on her clothes. And I remember I got so mad at her because I was the one who had to clean out her vomit, and I was the one who had to wash out her clothes. And I told her off. I was mad at her. And I was like, Sylvia, you're making me clean your clothes. And I told her off, not knowing she was so sick. And something really weird happened. There's a myth I've heard about flies, and that flies like predict death and bad things and bad luck. So I was very upset, and I went to the place where I could wash her clothes at. And I was washing the clothes, very mad, and suddenly I heard a big buzz, and I was terrified. I was like, "Oh my god, bees are attacking me!" What? And and that is very serious. That could be lethal, and it was just a second, and within that second, I didn't know what to think. I was so shocked, and then I had to struggle with some bugs and mosquitoes, but like the second after, I was able to realize that they were not bees. They were some kind of mosquitoes uh, that have special name. People from the plains have a special name for them. I don't remember it. And they would sting, but it wouldn't hurt. So it was nothing serious. But they all got into my shirt, into my hair, and I was screaming like, "What is this shit? Please help me!" And I remember I had to take my shirt off because I was desperate. But we realized it was not serious, and I calmed down, and I had to pick the insects out of my hair. And I was after that, I was so mad, and I'm like, "Sylvia, it's because of you that I've been attacked by bugs." I was so upset and so selfish, thinking about my pain and my problem, that I could not focus on Sylvia. So that happened, and we spent the night, our last night, in the plains, and we were going back to Bogota the day after. And that was the night when Sylvia got really, really sick. She was very sick, and I remember my dad would force her to drink the ibuprofen. Um, it's like liquid for kids, and she was so upset about doing it. It tasted very bad, and she's like, "Dad, I don't want to take that." She was very upset, and that was it. I we were sleeping on in the same bed, my sisters Sophia, Silvia, and me, and I could have never thought it was the last night I would spend close to her, like actually sleeping with her and having her close to me. So we got to Bogota, and she kept being sick. She wouldn't get better. We got to Bogota on a Monday, and on Tuesday, my parents took her to our pediatrician, and he has seen us since we were little. And he didn't know what it was, so he thought it might have been because of the water from the plains, which we were not used to, but he thought it was nothing serious. So that was it on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, I left home in the morning, and I didn't even said goodbye to Sylvia. I knew she was in my parents' bedroom bed, but I was in a hurry, and I didn't say goodbye to her. And I spent the day, and on that afternoon, we were having the meet for the documentary, and I was so excited to see my friends, my musician friends, and Stefano, my friend, my sound engineer friend, and we went to that meeting, and I was very happy and excited about it, and we planned stuff. And then when I was leaving the meeting, it was probably 8 in the night, at night, and my mom called me, and she was crying, and she's like, "Inés Elvira, Inés, Silvia is very sick. She has dengue." Dengue is a disease that people get by a mosquito that stings them, who is carrying the virus. And I didn't know how serious it could be. And I remember I was like, "Mom, calm down. I'm going home." And when I got home, she told me. So we took her to ER, and they discovered Silvia had dengue. And I know this is very serious. And she kept crying. And she's like, I know this is very serious. I know. And I'm like, Mom, I don't know what that illness is about, but I bet it's nothing serious. I bet it could be cured. Just calm down. But Silvia was already in special care. I don't know how to say that in English. When you're very, very ill and it's very, very serious, they take you there. So my dad was gonna spend the night with her, and she was gonna be transferred in the morning, in the early morning, to another hospital specialized in treating children. So I went to sleep, and then when I woke up on Thursday, on August 14th, I woke up and my parents weren't home, and I called my dad and I'm like, Dad, what's going on? And all he said to me was, this is very serious. Silvia is in death risk, so you gotta get here. But I had already agreed to with Stefano to go to the studio. To his studio. I was gonna give him a documentary. I wanted him to watch for reference, and it was on my way to the hospital. So I went to the studio, and I'm like, Stefano, my sister is in death risk. He's like, why? What? Ine, people call me Ine. Ine, I'm with you. I hope everything's gonna be alright. I'm gonna be praying. And it was very special for me to be with him on the day Silvia was gonna die. I I didn't know when I saw Stefano, when I met him, that my sister was gonna die. So I got to the hospital. When I got there, there was a lot of family and friends, and my mom told me she's very sick. Her systems and her organs are all not working because of the virus, and she has an artificial kidney, and she's breathing through a, a machine, and I was trying to understand what she was talking about. And I remember that I went out. I wanted some fresh air. Now, when I was in the hospital's garden, I thought of her, and it occurred to me a melody for her. I didn't know I was gonna compose a song out of it later, but it occurred to me, or actually God gave it to me, gave me that inspiration. So I went there, and almost at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, the doctors came out and they talked to us, the family, and they told us that Sylvia's body systems, were so bad, they were not working, that she was accumulating some blood they had to take out. So they had to make a surgery. And they went out and they made my parents sign some paper, like, which stated that they knew that she was a risky patient and that she could die. And they went in, and then they came out like a couple of minutes after, and I was like, oh, the surgery is about to start, and it's okay. But then my parents went into the ER room, and they called us. They were like, brothers and sisters, Sylvia's brothers and sisters, please come in. And then it was when it all started, and it was like a nightmare, and it was so surreal that I couldn't believe it. So I went in, and the first thing I saw was my dad sitting and crying, and that shocked me a lot because I had never seen him crying. And he was crying and he told us, Silvia has left us. And my sisters and my brother were there with my mom, obviously, and a couple of aunts. And I remember I screamed. I cried. I screamed. I cried, and they were calming me. They were like, Inés, calm down. And I cried, and my sisters, and we were all crying. And my sister Sarah was, this is our fault. This is our fault. And that was it. Then a minute after, I went out. And it's not like I decided not to cry or I decided to be strong, but I didn't cry. Like I cried on the moment they told me Silvia had died, but afterwards I didn't cry. And afterwards we had to deal with a lot of paperwork, including what color of coffin would you like for Silvia, and that was just so crazy. And I hadn't seen her. And we went to the morgue where they keep deaf people in hospitals. And I decided I wanted to see her. And I went there, and she was all covered by a white sheet, like cloth, fabric, and she was there, lying, dead. And I looked at her, and I told her I loved her. And he was very pale, you know. And I kissed her. And the kind of coldness I felt when I kissed her is a kind of coldness I will never forget. It was grim, total grim. So that was pretty much it. And then we got home and we talked about it, and my mom was like trying to comfort us in the middle of her pain. And she was like, I know Silvia has died for a reason, and this has got to change us. We have to stop fighting. And that was it. The crazy thing is that the day after was gonna be the day when we had Silvia at the funeral home parlor. It's the time when people visit you, you know. And I woke up on Friday, and I couldn't go right away to the funeral parlor. I had to go along with my dad and my sister to get checks, medical checks, to find out if we had the virus. There's not a vaccine for that virus. There's treatment. But when we found out that Silvia had it, that Silvia had dengue, it was already too late. So the kind of dengue she had was called hemorrhagic dengue, and it's a very serious kind of that illness. And it took her. But actually, people die. Dengue infected people die. Only the 2% of people, of dengue infected people, die. And my sister was part of that statistic, which is absolutely crazy and unbelievable. So we had the checks, and they found out we had the virus. And that was it. I went to the funeral home, and I was very grateful that a lot of people came. A lot of my friends, even friends I hadn't talked to for years, friends from school and family. And it was a very special moment. I didn't cry either on that day. And that was it. that was it. On Saturday, it was gonna be the funeral, Silvia's funeral, and and on Saturday morning, I finished composing Silvia's song, which I was planning on singing on at the funeral. And that was it. That was it. Um, this has already lasted for 30 minutes, and I hope you guys are listening and watching my story, and I'm gonna get I'm gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish this soon, within 30 seconds, hopefully. And I won't tell any more details, but I gotta say, there was something really beautiful and special going on the funeral, and was Stefano's presence. It was beautiful. From the look we gave each other, going through the hug he gave me, and her presence, his presence there. I felt like Silvia had sent him to me as an angel, as a support. It was really beautiful. I guess that's the way I want to finish this story, saying that Stefano was all love on that day, in which I was actually saying goodbye to my sister forever.